Okay, so let's continue with the different interesting cases that we have, and just a reminder, right? These different cases, as we start, this is actually will be one of the last, as of now. We'll see later. I just looked two more days afterwards that are more of the concept of how to deal with Toelis, right? Remember, we're giving different scenarios of Toelis is when there is a legitimate reason to say what you heard or what you saw. Right? That's Toelis. Toelis means to say for a purpose. And so, just a reminder: there are different categories, right? Different categories of let me take a step back. There are seven different bullet points and something that checklist that someone has to go through to make sure that he is within the category of talus. And we've been talking about a couple of different ones and bringing them out in different practical cases to show how it be applicable in our daily lives. So we're up to page 132. Right. Let's look at a couple more interesting cases and delve into further into the laws of lashon hara and the philosophy behind it. So I want to start off today with the case, and then we'll digress into some of the philosophy behind it. A very interesting scenario, and this is something that we always we do struggle with this a lot, right? It could be not to the extreme of their case. I hope not to the extreme of their case, right? But to other scenarios, right? You see your neighbor's 15-year-old kid, excuse me, right, standing with a group of friends outside of the local pizza shop. Right? We don't really have a local pizza shop here, a kosher one at least. But we have a pizza person, which makes good pizza, not to take away from him, right? But we don't really have a shop, right? Smoking a cigar, a cigarette, right? On one hand, you want his parents to know about it, right? So that you can prepare in harmful habit to get rid of the harmful habit. Right to let what's it called again? Let his parents know. And however, right, you know that his parents are likely to react extremely harshly to the news should you still speak. So there's a lot of things about this case. This is an extreme case, right? But this happens a lot of times. Let's say you're in shul in the good days of kiddush, right? Hopefully soon we'll have, or groups, and you saw one of the other parents' kids, another kid, not yours, talk not nicely to someone, or do something that is not nice. It's not physically harmful or dangerous, right? But act in a not nice way. To take tons of food in the kiddush and then just leave over the whole plate, right? That's something that's common, right? Or grab in front of the adults and not say excuse me, right? Or just other things. You see kids biking on the street and right, and they're acting extremely. It's an extreme dangerous way that they're biking. Not that their lives are on the line, right? It's you see how the cars come, but they're just not being so safe. Right. So there's of course different levels of danger. Right. Over here, the scenario they have is smoking a cigarette, which is dangerous and it's not good. It's not the end of the world, right? The kid's not going to die after one cigarette, but the question is it going to lead to more? And it's more the atmosphere that he's hanging out with, and you want the parents to be aware of, right? So there's a couple of factors to think about, even before we get to the answer, right? And I really think that this is a good case study, right? When we're dealing with other people, but when we're dealing with other people that have the responsibility of other people, if you understand what I'm saying. All right. So, number one, are you so certain that the parents don't know about this? Do you really think that the parents don't know? And a lot of times we think, oh, the parents don't know. Right? They're out to lunch. They don't know their kids, right? Or their kids just act in a certain way around them, right? But parents don't know. I want you to stop and think about stop and think about for a second, right? The relationship that you have with your kids. Right? A lot of times, right? We act in a certain way with our kids in public, right? Not, I don't mean to say bad, not in public, but we act in a certain way regarding our knowledge of our kids' behaviors, right? But we know we know exactly what they're doing. We have a calculation of when to educate them, how to educate them, right? We know what our kids are doing, right? Over mostly, right? So that's number one. Number one, you really have to think about, right? Do the parents really don't know? Right? Does the school really not know about what their students are doing? Does whoever it is, right, that is responsible, do they really not know what's going on? That's number one. Because if they do, and you're going ahead and you're coming to say something because you think you could create a lot bigger problems when people a lot of times get very defensive. And over here, they're dealing with extremely harshly to the news, right? And assuming regarding the kid, right? But the other way around also, they could be react harshly to the kids and think about it yourself, right? Not think about someone else, because we have all been in this situation once in a while. I'm talking to myself too, right? Where someone tells you something about your kid, right? They say, "Listen, I know my kid, right? Why do you think I'm taking them to whatever, or dealing with them with that, or and like, thank you so much. Like, I appreciate you saying it. You're saying it a little sarcastically, right? Because like, don't stick your head in, where it doesn't need to be done or need to be in. And people feel that way, right? And you really have to think about how is a person going to react, right, to you, right, in the sense of their appreciation to what you're telling them. Do they really would they really want to hear, right, what you're telling them from you? And do they really not know? Because sometimes really what's pushing us to say something is because we think that the parents don't know. That's one question we have to ask. And that's not so much in Lashon Hara. It is in the idea of Lashon Hara, because there's no Toelis. If the parents know about it, so then there is no Toelis. And just because someone knows about something doesn't mean to say it's not Lashon Hara, right? So you're not gaining anything, and you could just even if the parents don't react badly, right? But the parents do know about it, and it's very likely they do know about it. Well, okay, but let's say you're a case the parents don't know about it. Either the parents are really out to lunch, right? Which you have some parents are like that. My tatala is the best kid in the world, right? And you have some parents that really believe that their kid is immune to all struggles and all temptations, and the mom is the best kid in the world. The kid is good at it. At home, his mom is like doing everything, but other times he's like a little chevraman, right? He's a little troublemaker, he or she, right? So now the parents don't know, but you do know, right, that the parents are one of those parents that will react extremely. Their way of educating, right, or their lack of their shock will make them be extremely harsh on their kids, right? And you've seen it from other times that the way the parents, you're good friends, and and the parents have said something, right? How they will what's it called again, react, or how they discipline their kid, and that the parents will react extremely harsh, and it won't be healthy for the kid, right? And it's going to be go from like one extreme to the other extreme. So now, right now, you're concerned about the person that you're talking about, right? So it's either parents or it's a boss, right? Let's say you have some information, right, about a worker, right? Someone's worker, and it's not affecting the work at all, right? It's just you think that the boss should know, whoever that may be, right? Whatever work it is, if it's working in a restaurant, if it's working in a corporate office, if it's working in a synagogue, right? Wherever it is, right? Doesn't make a difference. A school, right? And you think it's important that the boss knows that you saw, right? This individual, cutting someone off on the street. Right? It was just terrible. Right? It's cutting someone off. Right? Or you think that you saw them, they were kiddish, and they were bad mouthing, and they were talking, very roughly, and then talking lashon hara, and then whatever it is, not about the company, not anything negative about the individual, but you think that the boss should know that that's the kind of worker that they have. Right? It's another case. It's a similar thing. It's where the scenario is that the person you're talking to, right? The person you're talking to has a shlita, has some kind of responsibility for the person that you are talking about. If it's a boss, right? Or if it's a parent, right? So the question is, what do you do? Right? So number one, just for those that just joined us, thank you for joining us. All right. Question number one, we said one has to think about is, A, does a person not know? Right? Does a person really not know? Because you're only going to tell them because you think that they don't know. So that's where the toelis is. You feel that they need to know. Right? And if the person does know, or you have a feeling that they might know, right? Person davens in the same shul with you, and he might have heard the conversation, right? Or a parent does know their kid, right? More than you think they know their kid, right? If you don't mind just muting yourself, I would appreciate that. So number one, we said that could be a problem also, because you could number one, create a friction in between, right? The two of you, because people don't like to be told something that they know about, right? And that's something very important. Number two, the scenario we're telling here, is it going to be the reaction going to be from that individual that is in charge, right, of this person, be it if it's regarding a boss or it's a parent, right? Is the reaction going to be harsh? That's not fitting what is going on, what the person really did, and therefore you're going to cause more harm to the person that you're talking about than is necessary. All right, so that is the dilemma. What do you guys think? Any thoughts? Feel free to unmute yourself.
One thing I kind of stuck on is
Craig, you have to talk louder. Craig, you have to talk louder.
Oh, sorry. One thing I was stuck on was you kind of said it earlier, was what if it's health related? What if you see something that is not healthy? Does that override the potential for conflict, or
Okay, so great point. So this is always a very sticky point over here. What is considered health related? I know some people that feel that if you take one puff of the cigarette, that's it, you're a dead person, right? It's a terrible thing. It's the greatest sin in the world, right? And you're in the medical field. You know that one puff of the cigarette is not going to kill you, right? Probably standing behind a car that is being turned on will kill you even more, right? But it's still that. But one will lead to two, will lead to three, right? It's an addiction, right? So the question is, what is considered healthy? Yeah, you see them, driving their bikes on San Jose Boulevard, right? Your 10-year-old kid riding their bike on San Jose Boulevard. That is dangerous, yes, and that you should tell the parents, right? 100%, right? But if you see them riding in the middle of the street on, Merlin Drive, which is not a busy street at all, right? And you didn't see any cars driving by, so you're not sure if, when cars do come by, they move over to the side, or they just play chicken with the car, or they just ignore the car, right? But it's a side street. It's not only a side street, but it's ends up in a cul-de-sac. So it's, not a lot of cars drive down there. So that's very different, right, than a kid driving their bicycle, on San Jose Boulevard. And so there's always, and that's a very good question. I don't have a complete answer for you. I just took two extremes, right? But there is sometimes the individual, that's part of the calculation that the individual has to make. If they feel that it is something that is extremely dangerous, right? So then that's one thing. Or, they feel that this person is really harmful for this person's business, right? Based on what they said or how they're acting, right? It also depends on the business that the person is, right? If the guy works in a warehouse and no one ever sees him, so then it doesn't make a difference, how he acts. No one of the person's business knows who he is, right? So, so why are you going to tell him that he spoke, he's a rude person in Kiddush, like, what is it? Okay. But if the person is in customer service, right, or the person works at front desk of a hotel, right, and you've seen that he's very rude and something like that, so then that could be different, right? That could be that it is harmful for the person's business. But if the owner has two heads on his shoulder, he should probably see that, And maybe the person's just rude amongst his friends, but he's not rude for his business. And then you're ruining it for him because, you know, we do know that people act differently in certain places. Again, it depends. There's a lot of variations, but we're talking about in a scenario where it's sort of middle of the road, right? Like over here, you know, smoking and hanging out with these kids are a bad thing, right? But you know, it's not. They're not doing anything bad. It's amongst their friends, and you know, teenagers do things like that. And okay, maybe not in society and these, you know, this group of people, right? So, you know, you really should say something, but at the same time, it is a 15-year-old, and 15-year-olds are teenagers, and they react always very differently. It depends. Sometimes they have to be, you know, dealt with in a certain way. And if the parent is going to react in an extremely harsh way, right, so then they might, you know, hurt the kid even more. So it really depends on the case, right? And as we mentioned so many times, right? But that's a good point. What is considered dangerous? And so we gave an extreme case, which is considered dangerous, but it also a lot of times depends. You see, you know, a 17-year-old kid riding on San Jose, that's very different than a 10-year-old kid, right? You know, riding in the bike lane, it's perfectly fine. A 17-year-old kid, right? He's almost an adult. That's very different than a 10-year-old kid riding on San Jose. So there's a lot of variations that has to be dealt with. But in our scenario, right, where sort of you have this concern, right, but it is a legitimate problem with what the kid's doing, but it's not like, you know, riding on San Jose. That's sort of where we're dealing with. What do we do? Any other thoughts?
I'll just say, can I say my thought?
Emily, we always love hearing, even if you're not here in person, we always love hearing.
Sorry. Yeah, my allergies are killing me. What was I going to say? Blah, 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 blah. Yeah, I think that if the parent's going to react in a extreme way, then I wouldn't say anything if the thing is not too dangerous, you know. But if it's a normal parent, like a regular mentally healthy parent, I would personally tell them, because as a parent, I would want to know. You know what I mean? Like, I would want to know, and maybe I already know. So maybe I could say, yeah, I know my kid is, you know, God forbid, my kid, whatever it is, like, I know my kid has been, you know, smoking with this friend. Thanks for letting me know. I think like a mentally healthy person wouldn't, you know what I mean? Like, they would be, they either say, either they'd appreciate the information, or they would say, you know, I already know, thanks for, you know, I already know, I'm dealing with it, or whatever it is, or I don't know. But I think if you know the person's going to freak out about it and they're going to overreact and they're not mentally healthy, then I probably wouldn't tell them, because then that's just going to cause more problems than the cigarette, in my personal opinion.
Okay, anybody else agree or disagree with Emily?
I agree.
Okay, Bonnie agrees. Let's take a
Thanks, Bonnie.
You're welcome.
Anybody else want to chime in over here? Okay, no one else wants to chime in.
We agree.
We agree.
The
Okay.
Wilsons agree. Okay.
The Wilson, okay. Cindy, what do you think? Okay.
I agree with Emily.
You agree with Emily? Okay, I'm closing up shop. Emily, you're giving the class.
No, you're doing a good job. I'm good. I'm good.
Thanks. I appreciate that. Okay, so Emily is correct, right? Emily is correct, but this is a scenario, and I just want to reiterate that is a very touchy, and not really a clear-cut kind of thing that, you know, just say, oh, okay, this is how it is, right? It is extremely difficult to know. There are, as we said, there are certain extreme cases which is straightforward, right? But there are, in the middle of the road, there's a lot of variations, and as we said, it depends on the parent, depends on the kids, right? If it's a 15-year-old, not a 10-year-old, right? It depends on the kid, it depends on what they're doing, right? It depends on your relationship with the parent, right? And you know, that's one thing I want to add on to what Emily's saying. It also depends on your, if you never talked to the person before, right? And you know, you think you're going to think that, and this is to the thing that I pointed out, they don't speak about this over here, but the thing that I added, right, that you also have to know how the parents are going to react to what you're saying to them, right? Because we mentioned before, right, that if you're going to create a machlokus between you and the person you're talking to, right, that's not toelis, right? You're just creating another fight, right? Another argument, another thing, and the parents might like, okay, take it a little bit, but they're not. You have no legitimacy in those parents' eyes. You know, they don't really know you, right? They think their child is a tatulin, a great kid, right? And and if you say something that they're just gonna, a lot of times parents are gonna say, and they're healthy parents and they're fine parents, and we're not talking about unhealthy parents, right? But they're gonna say, why are you bad mouthing my kid, right? Why are you bad mouthing it? I'm sure a lot of you have heard this before, right? Why are you bad mouthing my kid? Why are you bad mouthing my kid, right? And that's something that you have to also put into consideration, right? When you are speaking, and let's say everything else, you know, you checked off all the other boxes, right? But you also have to think about how this person is going to react to what you are saying also, right? So let's just see what they say, right? If of your speaking will cause undue harm, then the consequence aspect of your words is nullified, right? Constructive aspect of your words is nullified. Certainly, we are not allowed to cause more harm to a person than the halacha would allow for that specific, right? So misdeed. So as you see, their answer is very vague, right? It's a very vague, it's a very vague answer, and rightfully so, right? Because the rule is you're not allowed to cause more harm, right, than the person deserves, right? Now, right? There's a lot of different variations to that, and we gave some of those variations, and that's why it's important to learn these halachas, right, in a discussion, right? Because we have to, they sort of giving guidelines, but you have to look deeper into the guidelines and know what is behind the guidelines, right? And this guideline of unnecessary harm, right, overrides, right, you know, the constructive aspect of words, right? That is okay. That's the rule. Now we have to think about all the different scenarios that might cause the unnecessary harm. Is it the unnecessary harm for the kid? Not necessary harm for your relationship with these people, right? The unnecessary harm, right, for also the parents, right? The kid's not doing something so bad, but the parents are going to take it so hard. Oh, what did they do? I can't believe it. I'm such a bad parent, right? And you know, and you're right? You're going to create unnecessary harm for them, right? And the mother's going to go depressed, right? And they're going to go start calling all their different rabbis. They're going to get kamez and, you know, fast for 20 days that they're able to, you know, educate their kid better. And I'm going to a real extreme.
You really
right?
are. Right?
But really, right? The question one has to think about is what is considered unnecessary harm? Right? But the rule of thumb is if you're going to cause unnecessary harm, and this is very practical, this is something that happens a lot, right? Regarding people's work, right? And I'm serious about this, right? People's work. You feel you have a duty to tell that person, right? Or someone that works in the public eye, right? Whatever organization, and you saw something, let's say, not so bad, right? Okay, you know, but you feel that you have to tell the person's boss, right? Because it's my duty, right, to do that. We become all righteous, and it's my duty to do that. And now this person might lose their job, right? Or they might get a, you know, a slap on the wrist, right? Whatever it is, and that's, there's no need for that. It's nothing to do with their job. It's nothing to do with their, right? Of course, if it's something that is affecting the organization or affecting the person, the company, or whatever it is, then that's something else. But if it's just, you know, you saw something and you feel, oh, you have the duty for them to know everything, right? You have to really think about what you're doing over here, right? You're playing with people's lives. You're playing with people's parnasa. You're playing with people's reputation. It's very important to remember this rule. And again, there's many aspects to this rule. We just spoke about some of the things that could come out that could be harmful, and some of the things that we have to think about. Any other comments or questions on this? Okay, let's move on. So I want to talk about the next paragraph, and it's a very interesting paragraph, right? A very interesting paragraph that I think we all have to take to heart, right? And I'm not going to read the whole thing, but if you look at the first paragraph, right? A large percentage of lashon hara comes from right? For most of the second, yeah, I'll just say it outside. Right? The idea is like this. A lot of times lashon hara comes, right, from a person not being able to talk to the individual that something happened. And remember, we said if you feel that the conversation you're going to have with that person, right, is going to be a healthy conversation, and you want to go ahead and tell them, right, we're talking about where someone did something to you, right? Right? In that scenario of lashon hara, not this case of, where you see something that happened to someone, or let's say you do, and you feel like it's a 15-year-old kid. You could go talk. If it's a 15-year-old kid, you have to be very careful, right? With parentings and things like that, sometimes parents get all upset if you go ahead and talk to them. People think, I'm going to just talk to the kid, and I'm not going to get the parents involved, right? So you have to be very careful. Once it's a 20-year-old, whatever it is, it's something else. It's an adult, right? But you're going to go. You saw someone did something, right? Or someone did something to you, or did something to your kids, or whatever it is. Right? A lot of times, right, what causes lashon hara, and really have to stop and think about this, right, is our inability to be able to confront the individual and have a healthy conversation with that person. Right? Because the second we talk to that person, we will hear that person's response, right? If sometimes they'll be like all like in your face, and okay, that'll cause you more harm, and it wasn't accomplished anything, and now you might have more things to talk about, right? So, but 90% of the time, a healthy individual, as Emily said, let's say we're talking about healthy individuals, right? Even if the person might not, fully admit what they did wrong, or might not say I'm sorry sincerely, right? But most of the time the person was like, oh, I didn't mean it, I'm so sorry, or whatever, let's just start over, or different things. Even if it's not, most times it's not gonna be like, how dare you blame me to do that, blah blah blah, and getting all upset at you, right? But most of the time, it will be a healthy conversation. But we as humans, we are chickens. We are, right? 90% of us, let's be honest, are chickens. And we are scared of confrontation. And we're scared to confront someone and tell them how we feel. And we could have a whole class, a whole series on this, right? How many relationships have gone down the drain, right? Either marriage, business partners, friends have gone down the drain, have just been destroyed with people not being able to have a healthy conversation, right, with one another, and telling them truly how they feel. That's for another time. Really important to reflect
It
on.
is.
Right? But we are chickens. We are chickens, and if we are able to, get the courage to be able to confront the person and say, hey, I just want to let you know that I just want to get your take on the story. I saw you, at Kiddush, and it was really distasteful the way you were talking. I don't the person of your caliber or the position you have, or, it was just, I just wanted to let you know that really, really rubbed me the wrong way, or, it was really, really harmful, what you did to me, the way you keep on putting your garbage on my lawn, right, and not keeping it on your lawn, right, or whatever the scenario is, right, right, or how you, how your kid is dealing with my kid, right, can we have a healthy conversation about it, right, because your kid is really bullying my kids, or they're making fun of my kids. Right? Instead of starting to talk about parents, how they're bad parents and things like that, and they don't know how to educate their kids. And if we're able to man up, right, or one man up, God forbid, not just man up, right? If we're able to get the courage, right? If we're able to get the courage, right, to be able to have a conversation, right, to have a conversation, then lashon hara, right, would almost cease to exist. Because we won't need to talk to other people about it. We won't need to let out our anger, our need of conversation to other people, because we already let it out. If the conversation between good friends, right? Yeah, I've heard me. I have, yeah, I speak to my girlfriend, right? I speak to my bro, right? Whatever it is, I just let everything out on him or her, right? We have good conversations. If those conversations actually happen between a husband and wife, right, or business partners, right, or people or neighbors, right, then we would have a lot more people getting along, right, and be healthier relationships, right, than if you just let it all out on your good friend over a drink or whatever it is, right? There's nothing wrong with letting it out and needing to conversation, but it should be with the person that you have the issues with. And then afterwards, in a kosher way, yes, you could say, hey, listen, you're a very, very good friend who understands you, whatever it is, and could sympathize with you. And there's always limitations to what you could and can't say, right? But the real letting out should be, right, with the person that it happened with. And really, that's the halakha, right? And we mentioned this before. And it says, "Osisna achicha b'ovavecha." Do not hate your friend, achicha, really, your brother, right? Your sibling, because we're all brothers and sisters, right? B'ovavecha, in your heart. The Torah doesn't say, "Lo sisna achicha," do not hate your sibling, but it says, "B'ovavecha," in your heart. And the commentaries learn out from there that you have to communicate. You have to tell the person what is bothering you. Give them the chance, right, to either explain themselves or to apologize, or sometimes they won't say anything, but at least you're getting it off your chest. At least you're getting it off your chest. And this is so important, and it is therapeutic, and that's what people go to therapy for, right? To get things off their chest, right, Emily? Right? That's what people, they just need to talk, right? I always said, I said, put a couch out, and just sit there and just listen to people, right? Now, of course, you have to say things once in a while, right? But that's really the main point, is an avenue and an art of allowing people to express themselves in a healthy way. And if we're able to really think about this and have the guts to go over to the individual, and 99% of the time, then we would be in a lot better place, right? In a lot better place, because you're confronting the person and saying, hey, I know this is going to be a little uncomfortable, but I just wanted to let you know what you did was hurtful, right? How you're talking about my kids is hurtful, right? What I saw in kiddos just seemed not right, right? And I just want to let you know, right? Now, we have to be careful also. Just because you think something's not right, right, doesn't mean to say it's not right, and then you can create a whole machlokas, right? Again, you have to be careful what you are saying and how you react to certain things. You might need to go to therapy, right, or have a good look into oneself, right, and figure out what is really wrong and what's not really wrong, right? And you have to know the scenario people are in and where the kids are and what, you're going to go tell your neighbor, oh, I saw your kids, they were riding so wildly on and you there, or someone did something to you, and it's not, let's be honest, it's not the end of the world, right? It's not the end of the world. Calm down, right? Don't be someone that's on their high horse. You have to reflect in terms and think about also what exactly happened and how bad really this is, that if you go ahead and speak to the person, right, it might, the person like look at you like ridiculous, right? So that's a very important point. Now, where does this not apply, right? Where does this not apply? What is a scenario where one is not supposed to go ahead and confront the person and tell them what's on their mind? Anybody could think of a case where one should not go ahead?
When it's going to cause the person to get hurt and angry and upset. Right?
You said a lot of different things. Some of them are right, some of them are wrong.
Well, you said it's like lashon hara, you don't want to say sorry you don't want to ask someone for forgiveness, right? You said if they're going to be hurt by it, right?
So very good.
It seems like it's a similar concept. You don't want to hurt somebody.
So Emily, that's very good, but right, I was waiting for someone to bring that up. It's very different, the two cases. That is when you said something about someone else and you're going and approaching them and say, hey, before this gets out, I just wanted to let you know, I'm sorry, I said this Lashon Hara, right? And I just want to let you know, I'm so sorry, I didn't mean to, right? Or I did this thing and, I spoke to the person and they promised they're not going to spread it, right? But I just wanted to let you know ahead of time. So there, you are trying to appease the other person of something that you did, right? So we said that if it's going to cause more harm, right? So then you are not allowed to go ahead and try to rectify your mistake by harming the other person. Excuse me, right? So that is over there where you're trying to fix the mistake that you did. Where in our case is where you're going ahead and approaching someone that did something to you, right? Something that you saw that happened. Either someone did something in public, what you think is just not the right way of acting and it's really bothering you and you really want to go tell their boss or their parent or, if they're like 20 years old and whatever, or their spouse or whatever it is, right? And, before you go do that, you should really speak to that person, or someone did something to you or said something about you, right? So the two cases are very different. It's important. I'm glad you brought that up. I was waiting for someone to bring that up, right? Because those two cases they're very different. And over here, right? You're saying how you're telling the person how you feel, right? So and over there is you're telling someone what you did to them, right? So that's not you're not hating the person in your heart, right? You're trying to do tshuva, right, of what you did. So back to our case, right? What is a scenario where one should not go ahead and tell the person what you did to them, right? What they did to you, right? Do not hate your friend, your family in your heart. And therefore, you're supposed to go ahead and tell them, right? And have that conversation with them and say, hey, this is what you did to us, right? This is what you did to me. This is what I saw in public and it looked really bad. And I don't want to go to, and I was thinking of going and telling your spouse or your family, but, I want to just, have that conversation with you, right? I don't want to hate you in my heart, right? What is a scenario where you should not go ahead and say something? Chayle, I see you have your hand up. Go ahead.
What I was thinking as you were talking, though, it's better to use I statements rather than you did this and you did that. This is how I felt.
Okay, so Chayle, you are correct, right? But you're talking about you're saying how one should approach the conversation, and that's true, right? If you look at the last paragraph, right on the page, it says the solution is simple: calmly, honestly, tell the person how his or her words or action made you feel, right? Right. So give the person a chance to explain, right? So you're 100% correct. What you're saying is how to have that conversation. What I'm asking is, right, when is a scenario where you should never have that conversation?
Okay.
I guess when it makes things worse. Person is just going to get angry. I mean, I guess some people can't hear about mistakes they made and they have no ability to self-reflect. So for some people, it's just going to make the situation worse.
Okay, 100%, very good. So that's the answer. The answer is simple, right? It's when it's going to make the situation worse. Right now, the question is, what is a case where it's going to make the situation worse? And you're going to get my famous answer. It depends, right? A lot of these answers, a lot of these things are, it depends on the scenario, right? Lashon Hara is not clear cut. I mean, the halachas are clear cut, but we're dealing with human nature. We're dealing with human feelings and things like that. So it really depends on the scenario. So as Emily said, right? Right? But we have another famous pasuk, and we've talked about this before. You should rebuke your friend. You should tell your friend what they did wrong, right? You have to give your friend rebuke. You should not make sure that there's no sin. So there's many different answers, right? Many different explanations to what does that mean, right? But one of the ideas that the commentaries say is that if you know when you go ahead and rebuke your friend, they're gonna get angry at you. They're gonna find ways of saying this never really happened. It's just your opinion. It's just your thought. And now you're bad-mouthing me. And they're gonna blow the whole thing up. And you're gonna, right? Or you're not someone that they listen to, right? and they don't give a hoot about what you say, right? And you've seen that before. They're just that kind of person, right? They don't care. You don't have no relationship with them, right? You're a stranger, and they'll just write you off, right? And it's just going to create anger, and animosity, and it's not going to cause anything, right? So then, right? Then you're stuck. You can't say anything, and you just then have to, be very strong and not say anything to anybody else, right? So, and that also depends. Even if they're not going to listen to you, but they're not going to get angry, they're just going to write you off. So whatever, right? So then, right, then you could say something, because at least you're getting it off. You're not hating them in your heart. You're telling them how you feel. Hey, listen, buddy, I know you don't care about my opinion, right? And we don't really know each other very well, but I just want to let you know, right, the other day, right, we were both in shul, right? And you just kept on, barging into me and stepping on my toes and whatever in Kiddush, you bumped me a couple of times, and I just want to let you know, right, that I just want to let you know what happened, right? And it was not right. I think you should really watch yourself more, right? And you could say it in a nice way and say, hey, listen, I don't know what's going on. I don't know if you realize, right? But you did this and that. And they might say, whatever, right? But at least you're not hating the person in your heart anymore, right? And you got it off your chest, right? If you know that the person's going to make a whole tararam out of it, a whole big deal, and then start screaming and shouting and blah, 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 and then try to change the situation how you're the one that hurt them. And so then that's a case where it's better not to say anything, right? But generally 90% of the time, right, you're not going to have, they might not react and change their ways, but that's not the purpose of a year. Purpose of a year is not to rebuke them to change their ways. The purpose of a year is to make sure that you're not transgressing that veira, right, of hating your friend in your heart and not telling them how you feel. So even if they're not going to change their ways, it has to be where the person's going to blow up and it's going to get, you're going to be in trouble, right? And because this person is an influential person, and the person's going to switch the whole thing around and make you the bad person, which happens, right? Or the person is going to blow up and start screaming at you and start scrutinizing. I'm going to find something wrong that you did, and blah blah blah, right? So then you don't want to get on that person's bad radar, right? So then, it's better not to say anything. But otherwise, really, we have to say something. And I know it's hard. It's hard, right? It is hard, right? But there is a transgression in the Torah. Lo sisna achicha b'mavecha. Do not hate your friend in your heart, right? And I know we said this quote last week, right? But I want to explain this quote based on what we're saying now. Right? Do not withhold good from the one who needs it when you have the power in your hands to do it. Right? So a lot of times, right, if you tell the person what happens, most of the time, especially if it's a acquaintance or a community member or, a spouse, right, or parents, and a lot of times we just don't want to rock the boat or whatever it is, right? If you withhold good over here, let's translate it as not, materialistic things or your finances, but if you hold good withhold good means to say the information that you have, right, from the one who needs it, the person that you're talking about, the way they're acting or whatever it is, or their behavior or their conduct, right? When you have the power in your hands to do it, right, that's a problem, right? Do not withhold. You have the power to tell the person, and the person might listen to you, right? Or at least make them reflect and think about their ways, right? Or they might change their ways, right? So then you have to do that, and you have to realize that that's a big problem by withholding that information. Okay, we're going to stop here, everyone. I know we did only one halacha, right? But we talked about some really deep things, and it's a really sensitive scenario over here, right? That we're talking about. Right, and therefore I wanted to spend more time on that because this is something that occurs so much, right? Especially with communities, your children, friends, in school, right? You see people doing things, coworkers, right? It happens so often, and I would say probably a very large percentage. I don't want to say a number. A very large percentage of lashon hara, right, comes about from things that we see within our community, right? Things that we hear, right, because of something that happened, right? And we have to really think about, right, how we say it, when we say it, right? And excuse me. And also, right, we have to think about that sometimes if we are the party that it happened to, then we have to go ahead and say something, right, to the person that it happened to, not to someone else, right, but the person that it happened to. Thank you, everybody, for joining us.